Geachte Voorzitter, through you to the Honourable President, we must always remember that a President will be judged by his track record. And what I did is, I went and I looked at what the President said and what he achieved. And I want to start with his first State of the Nation address in 2018. And I quote, he said the following: "This year, we will be initiating measures to set the country on a new path of growth, employment and transformation. We will do this by getting social partners in our country to collaborate in building a social compact on which we will create drivers of economic recovery. At the center of our national agenda in 2018, it is the creation of jobs, especially for the youth." Close quote. But what is the reality? If we, for instance, go and look at the growth rate under the leadership of the President, in 2018, in his first year, it decreased from 1.1% the previous year to 0.8%. In 2019, before COVID, it was 0.113%. And therefore, under his leadership and what he said, does not compare on the promises he made. If we go and look at the unemployment rate, in 2018, when he became the President, that 2018 year, under his leadership, the narrow definition was 27.1% and the broad definition 37%. At the moment, the narrow definition is 34.9% and the broader definition 46.6%. Now the President came forward and he said, and I quote, "We all know that government doesn't create jobs. Businesses create jobs." Close quote. Honourable President, yes, you're quite right. We all know that government does not create jobs. We knew it all the time. The question is, why do you say this now at this moment? You had 4 years to look at this situation. And yes, in today's weekly newsletter, you said that since '94, the ANC had a mixed economy. And quite a lot of people get excited when they heard what you said. And they see it as a second new dawn. What they don't realize, they're still actually in the dark of the first dawn of 2018. And I want to say here today, Honourable President, you said this and you quoted this to use as blame shifting. The ANC government failed the people and especially the young people as far as employment is concerned. The unemployment rate amongst the youth is, and we talk about between 18 and 24 years, is about 63%. You failed them. And now you want to use this phrase as blame shifting to say, no, it's not the problem of the government. It's not because of the government, it's because of private business. If we also look what the President said, he said that he's going to establish a task team to look at the red tape. Honourable President, in 2020, you already said that. In fact, you said with the flick of the finger, you can register your company. And I can assure you, with the pandemic in 2020, many fingers had flicked to register their companies to get hold of the money with black economic empowerment and to steal the money meant for the people. That is what happened. And you don't need, of course you have to look at red tape, but if you ensure that there is good governance, then you will promote 70% of more, faster, and more willingness from the private sector to invest in South Africa. If you're in business, you have to register your employees. You go to Home Affairs now. You will stand for hours in the queues to ensure that your people get registered, to get an ID. If you improve governance, it will become better. If you go to look to your license officers, if you improve governance, you will see that there's an improvement. You also say local is lekker. Yes, of course, local is lekker. But, Honourable President, if you're so serious about local is lekker, why don't you accept a policy in your government that ministers and other officials only drive in local manufactured vehicles? If you're so serious about local is lekker, why don't you adapt and ensure that there's a policy when it comes to local government that they can only do business in their municipality and ensure that they enhance and promote the local businesses in their municipal areas? That is local is lekker. I also want to say, Honourable President, if local is lekker, why do you import Cuban engineers for millions of rand to come and do the job? But the problem is that they are not even qualified according to our standards. There are many engineers in South Africa, South African citizens, who are unemployed. In fact, many of them came forward with the ESCOM problem and said, we will work for free. We want to do it for South Africa. But you importing Cuban engineers who is not actually qualified. If local is lekker, why, for instance, then, that you take 50 million rand of taxpayers' money and you pay it for food security to Cuba? It is said that about 40% of people in South Africa is actually without food to ensure that they get a decent meal. If you're serious, start with your own people. The Freedom Front Plus will only accept that you are serious when it comes to economic reform if you amend labor legislation to ensure that unions have less power. We will only accept that if you come forward and you say you stop black economic empowerment. We will only accept if you come forward and you say you stop affirmative action. Ek wil nog 'n aanhaling maak. In 2018 sê die agbare president die volgende. Hy sê, ek wil dit nou mooi in Afrikaans sê. Ons bou 'n land waarin 'n persoon se vooruitsigte bepaal word deur sy eie inisiatief en harde werk en nie deur sy velkleur, geboorteplek, geslag, taal of inkomste van hulle ouers nie. Sluit die aanhaling. Dis wat die agbare president in 2018 sê. Maar hy gaan voort met regstellende aksie. Sy minister van hoër onderwys kom en hy wil nie eers Afrikaans as 'n inheemse taal erken nie. Maar die president het gesê almal is gelyk. Daar is nou wysigingswetsontwerpe op die tafel waar die taalbeleid van skole op die einde van die dag vir 'n finale besluit gaan berus, nie by die minister of die LER nie, by die departementshoofde in provinsies. Daar is nuwe wysigings wat selfs bepaal wat is die toelatingsbeleid vir ons skole. Ek wil vandag vir die agbare president sê, u is deel van 'n aanslag op Afrikaans. U woorde in 2018 was hol woorde. Laat ek vinnig sê in terme van die polisie en die onluste wat plaasgevind het in KwaZulu-Natal. Agbare president, die verslag sê u en die kabinet moet verantwoordelik neem. U moet persoonlik alleen verantwoording neem. En die rede is, in 2018 was daar die Mufamadi verslag op u tafel oor die wanorde, die korrupsie in die staatsveiligheidsagentskap. So in 2018 you already knew about the corruption in the State Security Agency. And what did you do? You did nothing. Now you first had to wait that 336 people get killed in, well, whether it was an insurrection and whether it was a riot, we still don't know. But then you started to act. If you acted in 2018, you could have prevented. Chairperson, I want also to say, I can't understand that the President says that he wants to curb violent crime in South Africa. But under his leadership, the budget for the police in 2017 or 2018, 2019 was 6% of the total budget. It has decreased now to 5% of the total budget. So you cut the budget of police, but you expect them to ensure and to fight crime. That is actions like that, where you judge the President and you ask yourself, is he really serious? You talk about gender-based violence. You've signed 3 pieces of legislation. Honourable President, the basis of gender-based violence lies with the police stations, where a woman goes to a police station, whether there are 10 pieces of legislation, it depends on what is happening in that police station. And you will have to come down to ground level to ensure that you effectively fight gender-based violence. Honourable President, I already said in 2018, the headlines on the newspapers was Ramaphoria. Again, there is such a move. It is now Ramaphoria Part 2. But I want to say to you, it is going to be Rama disaster. And the only way to save South Africa is that the people vote the ANC out in 2024 and a new government exists. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Agbare voorsitter, meneer die president, agbare lede, gevleelde woorde en krokodiltrane en baie beloftes, dit was kenmerke van vanjaar se staatsrede. Maar kwellende kwessies soos plaasaanvalle, die afskaffing van swart ekonomiese bemagtiging en regstellende aksie was weer eens nie aangespreek nie. The fact that you, Mr. President, acknowledge in your address that you and the Cabinet take overall responsibility for the recent events that took place in July 2021 illustrate that reference being made to the so-called kingpin and his mafiosi is not far from the truth. Impugana Hitlasha. You mentioned that the report of civil unrest released by the expert panel indicated that if the violence exposed anything, it was poverty and inequality is the root of the desperation of the people in the country. It's true. People are desperate in the country as a result of this. But that was not the cause of the unrest, Honourable President. What did the report also state that you didn't share with the public? The report stated that according to the Minister of Police, that, and I'm quoting, the planned violence was intended to make the country ungovernable. Close quote. President, you yourself in your initial address to the nation described the events as an attempted insurrection. In the report, Sasria said that the political environment which prevails, especially within the ranks of the ruling party, has become a source of instability and should be remedied. Civil organizations stress that the culture of violence and criminality within the ruling party was having a negative impact on communities and must be brought under control. And then the representative of think tanks said it had clearly organized and the main culprits were not the dwellers of the informal settlements or the ordinary residents in communities, but rather politically motivated criminal and opportunistic groups that drove this. Even the veterans of the security services were of the view that the 2021 violent events were indicative of a spectacular government failure. Die vraag is nou, met die dat u en die kabinet verantwoordelikheid vir hierdie tragedie aanvaar het, met die wete dat ANC-lede deel van die aanhitsing tot geweld en terrorisme uitgemaak het, wat gaan u doen? Aanvaar u ook aanspreeklikheid vir die dood van die 354 persone? Aanvaar julle ook verantwoordelikheid vir die werkloosheid van miljoene Suid-Afrikaners as gevolg daarvan? Aanvaar julle as 'n kollektief verantwoordelikheid vir miljarde rande se verlies aan infrastruktuur wat beskadig is gedurende hierdie onrus? Meneer die president, of aanvaar u die gevolge sonder om verantwoordelikheid daarvoor te neem? The president indicated that the agricultural sector is crucial to food security in the country. It's true. Maar kry die boere werklik regeringshulp? Indien wel, watter boere kry regeringshulp? Is dit weer selektief? Waar is die droogtehulp wat in 2020 aangekondig is? Daar is geen hulpverlening vir die boere wat duisende varke verloor het met die onlangse varkgriep wat uitgebreek het in die land nie. Wat van hulpverlening met die sprinkaanpla, die brande, die vloede? Ons sien niks daarvan nie. Nee, meneer Ramaphosa, u fokus eerder op 'n daggazol. U fokus eerder daarop om geld uit te deel vir daggaplase wat glad nie voedselsekerheid in hierdie land verseker nie. Crime is rampant, Mr. President. Steeds kondig u as president aan dat u eerder 'n spesiale ondersoekeenheid wil aanstel om na beskadigde kritiese infrastruktuur om te sien as plaasmoorde. U sê ook dat die burgers moet omsien na hierdie kritiese infrastruktuur, so asof u vooruit kan sien dat daardie spesiale eenheid nie suksesvol gaan wees in die mandaat wat dit opgelê is nie. Ons hoop hierdie eenheid slaan toe op syndikaate in dorpe soos Ketlingrivier, JB Marks, die Chabotla en Rustenburg wat weekliks getuister word. Dankie aan die GPF's, dankie aan die plaas- en buurtwagte wat ons oppas. Omsien na ons veiligheid. Ons sal self met trots onsself teen hierdie aanvalle van marteling beskerm, maar dit is duidelik dat dit nie op die president se prioriteitslys is nie. Meneer Ramaphosa, u draai uw kop weg as ons die bloedbelope bewyse voor u neersit van plaasaanvalle wat steeds vandag in hierdie land plaasvind. Hoeveel paas, kinders en vroue moet verkrag en vermoor word in hierdie land voordat u gaan toetree? U kyk steeds weg, meneer die president. U is doof vir die angskrete van kinders en vroue wat skree tydens hierdie aanvalle. Vula setsebe, houtla banabakala, tsotsi wabulala. U sal moet rekenskap gee, meneer die president, soos wat ons opgestaan het en gebou het na die verskroeide aardebeleid, soos wat ons die afgelope 28 jaar bou, aanpas, bydra tot die ekonomie, so sal ons aanhou bydra en floreer. Die erwe van ons vadere sal vir ons kinders erwe bly. Ons mag nie toelaat dat hierdie rowersbende ons onderkry nie. Ons sal aanhou om huis en hart binne die raamwerk van die wet te beskerm. Suid-Afrika hou moed, moet die moed laat toesal. Ek sluit af met 2 Konings 6 vers 16, maar hy antwoord, vrees nie, want die wat vir ons is meer
Time up.
die wat by hulle is. Dankie.